Welcome to the Budapest Psychic with Reverend Maria D'Andrea. I'm your co-host, Mimi. On each episode, we're going to dive deep into the inner workings of our reality, where intuition, energy, and the paranormal converge in one powerful experience, lighting your path to greater achievement and life purpose. Born in Budapest, Hungary, Maria is an experienced professional in the spiritual, psychic, and paranormal fields, and an author and public speaker. Maria's classes accommodates each person, whether you are a beginner or an advanced student. The life of a shaman weaves the human and the spiritual into a single path, guiding the shaman through a personal healing journey that cultivates sacred tools and a deep understanding of the non-physical world. Through this journey, the shaman develops unique specialties that allow them to serve their community, supporting healing, connection, and the expansion of spiritual awareness in all things. Before we take that journey with Maria, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Welcome to the Budapest Psychic, and we're here again, once again with Maria D'Andrea. Welcome, Maria, to the show.
Isten hozott, or welcome in Hungarian.
So we're going to be taking a look at the sacred world of a shaman, and we've got some interesting things to talk about that. A lot of people tend to fear the idea of shamanism, and Maria today is going to shed some light on it, and especially from a perspective of someone who came from Budapest, Hungary. And it should be very interesting to see a different perspective. So, Maria, why don't you take it away?
Shamanism is universal. Everybody in a different culture has a shaman, whether they tell you that they're a shaman or not. We all exist. If you go to, say, a tribal gathering, okay, you know that there is a shaman there because they're a little bit more open about it, but every culture has them. Okay, now, a shaman basically deals with the seen and the unseen, and we deal with secret or hidden knowledge, because we still work a lot of underground knowledge. Okay, we will pass it down, but a lot of what we do really is still underground. It's on a much heavier level. So I do teach, but again, some things we just don't deal with the public. Okay, so as an example, how can I put this? First of all, it is an oral subject that gets passed down through generations, or down to a student. Okay, and that's really how we work on it. So look at it like this. It's like being on a tightrope. Okay, so as shaman, we're on a little tightrope, and what happens is on one side of the tightrope is physical reality, right? And the other side of the tightrope is spiritual reality, different realms, different energies, because I'm always saying everything's frequency, vibration, and energy. So we work on both sides. So if you think of it as a tightrope, depending on what we're doing, we're just focusing on one side or the other. So it's very, very positive, but it's very controlled. And what we're doing basically is we're working on a molecular level. So when we're dealing with the different energies, we're controlling the energies. We understand it enough to work with it. So some shaman are positive, some are negative, just like everybody else on the planet. So you choose your path. The ability is neutral, because basically it's just a matter of working on a molecular level with energy, vibration, and frequency, and knowing how to work with it and how to control it. Okay, because we have free will, so we are always the ones in control. And people misunderstand shamanism a little bit. They look at a shaman as, how can I put that? Different hierarchies, different levels. Okay, a shaman is a shaman. There is no hierarchy. Every shaman is considered equal. Doesn't matter what culture, what tradition, what belief system that they utilize. Okay, every shaman is the same. Okay, so there's absolutely no difference. There's no hierarchy whatsoever. Also, an apprentice is misunderstood. An apprentice is a student or a colleague of the shaman. They are not followers. Sometimes people look at it as an apprentice is just, following you around and trying to learn. So no, it's either a student or a colleague. And again, no hierarchy. Everybody is learning at their own speed. One is not better. There's absolutely no hierarchy in this system. people think of a master as a master of, how can I say this, as a master over people. Okay, they look at it as your master and you have people under you. It's not like that. A master is only a master over themselves and their knowledge. That's it. Okay, we are not masters over anybody. We're happy to teach. We want people to be able to do things for themselves, but we are masters over ourselves. We are not masters over anybody else. Okay, so we're not dealing with followers. We're not dealing with one is better than the other. So different traditions call for different systems. And then as you go along, you develop your own. So a lot of my books, as an example, they have very, very ancient wisdom. Now, a lot of the ancient traditions, or the ancient techniques, I should say, do not have names. Okay, like if they have a formula, or a recipe, or whichever way you'd like to call it. But if you have a formula, it's passed down in an oral tradition. So they don't have a label, they just pass it down. So if you look at my books, I made up a lot of names, ancient traditions, because they didn't have any. And then, of course, some of them are mine, which means I remember telling you that I teach psychic self-defense. And the system that I have means that you're 100% safe on anything on the spiritual, etheric, energetic realm in every form. And you're about 98% safe on the physical realm because we have to go through experiences to learn. Okay. So as an example, it will tone down the level of the negative energy that would hit you. So say say you're driving in a car. Okay. What would happen? Oh, let me put it this way. This is even better. Say you're parked, right? And somebody comes, you're in a store, somebody comes while you're in the store and they want to steal your car. Because you're protecting your car, not just yourself, because you're protecting your car, they'll take the car in front of you. They might take the car in back of you. They might take your hubcap. Your car is fine. It changes the level. So people go, oh, it only takes a couple of hours to learn that. No, it took me 10 years of goof ups to make sure I have a system that works every single time. If it doesn't work every time, we just don't tell people we even tried it. So it always has to work to be passed down, always. And when you're working with different traditions, one is not better again. Everything is the same. It's always that we have control over the spiritual and the material universe. We can control things coming in, going out, protection, all different levels. Some systems we will teach, some we can't pass the point to the public, but we can more privately. And that's why we have people that are apprentices, students. Also, we get information in different ways. So I'll give you an example because this is funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now. Years and years and years and years ago, what happened was I have two adult sons, and at the time they were little, and I was in my kitchen, and nobody was home. And, I was working with a lot of occult, paranormal energies and doing readings and just very high energy for days and days and days, which is normal for me. So I'm in the kitchen and somebody, somebody said, look at me. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be bothered. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm busy. Right? Then I heard it again and I ignored it. It was a male voice. And then the third time, it was so loud, you can't ignore it. I think it was yelling at me because I wasn't paying attention. And I'm going, what? I don't know what that means. So the voice said to me, you are the lightning, not the thunder. And it took me a minute because now I'm going, oh, what does that mean? Okay. But it means we are the creators. We are not the after effect. Okay. So I'm saying, well, I'm busy in the kitchen and you're bothering me with this now because what? So sometimes it's unnerving, more annoying at the time, by the way, because I just didn't want to be bothered.
So this was a spirit, this was a voice from a spirit
Yes.
level.
Mm-hmm. Different realms. Okay. Because shamanically, we're always tuned in. We don't say that in general Okay, but we're always tuned in. Whether we work with it at the time or not, that's a choice. So if I'm in the kitchen doing things, it doesn't necessarily mean I want to tune into spirit. However, it does mean sometimes they want to tune in with us. Now, if I would have just listened the first time, it wouldn't have kept repeating it. We would have been fine and done. We have to remember we have the power to control things or not to deal with it at the moment. Okay, so we really have that power. And we are either positive or negative, just like everybody else. I'm always saying only positive, only positive, only positive. My students are so sick of hearing. But if a situation comes up, okay, they will respond in a positive way just automatically because they've heard it for so long. I have students from the 70s and 80s, that are still with me. And now if I start to say something, they're going, I know, only positive, only positive.
I just have a question on that because I've been wanting to ask you and perhaps to clarify when you say positive, are you saying, I'm sure you're not saying like look at everything with a rose-colored glasses. You're basically saying for a higher vibration type of mental setting so that you attract higher vibrational effects.
Exactly, which means we don't react in a negative way. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we don't get upset. I was just saying to a class the other day, if I'm driving in a car and somebody cuts me off, my first reaction is not, oh, that is so nice. Immediately, I use the word cancel so I don't send out negative energy inadvertently, because when I'm focused, it hits instantly or very quickly, depending on the situation. So I don't want to send out negative energy towards the person because I got upset. Okay, so I'm immediately driving home, cancel, 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 cancel. But my reaction is still normal. Okay. So it doesn't mean we don't have negative thoughts. It means we don't send that out. We don't react from it. We have control because we need the control. We don't want to hurt anything. We only do things in a positive form. Now, negative shaman are going to work negative. It's just the way it is. Just like people, some are positive, some are negative. And you have some people that are considered magi or sorcerers or sorceress or different forms, different labels. Okay. And again, positive or negative. That's like I'm always saying, I go direct. I was saying a while ago, one of my students started saying IGD, IGD. I go direct, because sometimes we use different tools. We'll use formulas, we'll use, sometimes they call them recipes. We use all different techniques. Okay. But I find I like, and I think it's more of a European outlook too, at least my country in Hungary. We go very direct because we find that the simple and direct methods are not diluted, being diluted. So what happens is we work stronger. It's stronger power because we didn't add 20 things that you don't need. So sometimes, as an example, you read a book that gives you a formula. Okay, out of that formula, you need 3 things for it to work. Okay, but the author wants to be very impressive. Now you have 20 ingredients, you only need 3. It toned it down. And then you're going to wonder why it didn't work the same way for you. It didn't because the person that wrote it, that actually knows what they're doing, only used the 3. Okay, so we don't give out misinformation. Okay, if we don't know, we're the first people to say we don't know. We don't know everything. Not, God, universal source, right? Okay, but we do have more knowledge than most of society in these areas. Okay? And we really are the oldest science because what happens is, I'm always saying, like, chemistry came out of alchemy. So we're very, very technical with formulae. So as an example, if we have a formula that says you add this and this and this to get this outcome, if people stick to it, that's exactly what happens. Okay. Then you always have somebody that says, well, I think I'm going to tweak it. And then they wonder why it didn't come out the same way. Like, well, let's see. You change something, and when we put formulas together, they think we're just blending like this herb goes with this herb, as an example. But it's vibration, frequency, energy. So different plants have different vibrational energy. So if you mix the wrong plants, they can neutralize each other or just not work.
The subject of herbs and plants sort of brought up the memory of the charmed ones and how they would always create potions with different types of herbs. Now they somehow, at least according to the narrative of the show, they always seem to know exactly what to use in order to combat perhaps a demon or something like that. How would you know what herb to use for any specific situation?
First of all, a lot of it is passed down for centuries. So it's passed down shaman to shaman. Eventually you become a shaman because remember you have an apprentice, which is a student and colleague, right? So it gets passed down through knowledge. A lot of it is just we experiment. It's like science. We'll blend different things together. We'll see how it works. If it works the same way every single time, then we can pass it on and use it. If it doesn't work, say, once out of 80 times, we still will not pass it on because it has to be consistent every single time because we're working on a molecular level. So as an example, the herb comfrey. Okay, if you make comfrey into a tea and you let it sit for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then you add it into, say, your facial cream, okay, or your body lotion, okay, it actually helps improve your skin. Now, if you use it on the occult side, say in a medicine bag or just in different formulas, okay, it's going to attract protection, peace, harmony, among other reasons that we work with it. Okay, and then we get very focused on programming it, for lack of a better word, for what use out of the 80 things that one herb will do, what use we're working on at this moment. Because if you don't specify, it's too vague. And now it's doing 20 things instead of one, which would be more powerful.
What you're saying is that you put the intent of what you wish to do with that herb into that whole, formula that you're putting together.
And the reason is because we are the energy, we're the trigger, for lack of a better word. So if you're just putting herbs together and you're not focused and you don't have the willpower to focus on what your goal is and what your intent is, it might work a tiny bit, but it's not going to do that much. So you will never meet a shaman that does not have very powerful willpower, not ever, because then you can't be a shaman. Okay, if you don't have the focus, it's not going to work because our thought, which is instant, our thought creates the universe. Okay? Our thought creates situations. So as an example, I had this wonderful, wonderful student, and he was always having problems with his car. People would not get in the car with him. His friends stayed away from him. They didn't even want him to hit their car. And what happened was, every time that something happened, his mental and his verbal language was, well, it always happens to me. It always happens. It always happens. Well, of course, because you're saying it always happens. So instead of saying, well, it was a one-time thing, it's never going to happen to me again, or at least you're not expecting it, right? Not that things don't happen. But if you're going to say, I always have a headache, the only one surprised when you get a headache is you. That's what you've been calling in. And our thoughts are instantaneous. So as an example, when you hear of, say, a parent and their child is stuck under a car, and all of a sudden they have all this strength to lift up the car. It's out of the norm. But their reflex, their mental intent was to get that child out from under the car. And we've heard about situations like that. It's not the norm, but it is possible. Because their intent was so strong, it outweighed everything else. So if you look around your life, you have an idea of what you are creating. If you're creating something wonderful, you want to keep doing that. If you're creating something you're not too thrilled about, okay, consistently, okay, then you want to change your outlook. You change your outlook, you will actually change your path. You will change your life.
People have so much trauma in their lives, especially a generational trauma. Now, there could be times when people just aren't going to be in that mindset, especially if there's been so many things that have come down the line, since your grandmother, great-grandmother, or what have you, and it comes to you, and you're not aware of it, but you realize that you just don't have that focus. You get pulled out a great deal because of shock, because of everything, like your nervous system is off. So I'm like wondering, it's not a very easy thing to be able to clean up, immediately and go into like a shamanic level in order so that your focus is so pinpoint that you know that you're going to, you know, get to where you need to get to or get what you wish to attract to yourself. I mean, what does one do in that type of situation?
To be a shaman, you've already gone through all that. Okay, you do a lot of self-work, as we were talking about. You do a lot of self-work. So you already know where your strength is, where your weaknesses are, what you need to fix, what you're still working on, because we're always working on ourselves. Nobody's perfect. We're not on the other side, right? So we already went through fixing as much as we can. And then some things, as an example, say you can't fix for some reason. And like you said, could be trauma. Some things that we can't fix, we will learn how to work with it, around it, through it. Okay. But we will have control to a point over it. Now, the control could be, I can't fix this, I'm going to avoid it. That's fine. You know who you are, but you have to be able to understand who you are on all different levels, emotionally, physically, financially, material world, spiritual world, on all those different. And like, when we're going out of body and when we do astral travel and we go to different realms, okay, you have to be in control because otherwise you're going to get hurt. Okay. So we have more control, but we started out with there's two different things. We started out though, okay, learning about ourselves and being able to control what we can, learning what we can improve and learning what we can avoid, and learning how to manipulate energy. There's no other way to put that. Okay. So when we're working with the energies, it doesn't mean we're perfect or we would not be in this physical body, but it means we have different control than other people. Okay, and we work with it differently. So, as an example, we're connected to everything in the universe: earth, air, fire, water, ether. Ether is us, by the way, right? So, we're connected to all the energies, and sometimes you have to know to work with the fire element, sometimes you have to know to work with the water element. Okay. I was saying in one of my workshops, because sometimes your mind goes, I don't know. But I was saying in one of my workshops is somebody decided that they're buying a well to put on their property because it's pretty and it's nice and they love the water element. Okay. You are not going to call in a fire element to help you with that because the fire element is going to burn down your well. Right? So, as an example, if you call in the king of the fire elements, which is called the salamander, if you call in the king, it's going to look at the well and you're going to say, oh, you didn't want that well. That's why you called me in because you didn't call in water. So you have to have an idea what different beings you also want to call in. There are so many realms. There are, as an example, there are different little beings, for lack of a better word, the different entities that build plants. Okay, they help build the plant, and then different ones break down the plant, and it's cyclical. Right? So they build and so if you're dealing with a plant, you have to know who you're talking to and what phase it's in. And if it's in a phase where it's breaking down, you should leave it alone. So you always have to be in touch with the elemental spirits and the spirits around plants and or whatever you're doing on a shamanic level, so that you also have to consider timing or seasons. Okay. Now, seasonally, that doesn't affect us so much. We try to work with the elements as much as possible. But if I'm working on helping somebody, say, build their business, okay, certain times are better than others, but we're not limited by that. So if it's not the right timing, we just use a different technique. It'll still work. So it's a different perception, for lack of a better word. That's like, how can I put this? Like everything has spirit in it. Everything has spirit. Okay. My mother, as an example, used to be phenomenal with plants. Absolutely phenomenal. I could kill a cactus because I keep forgetting to water the things because I'm not around that much. She can resurrect any plant. It's actually funny. And that's like some people you'll notice they will talk to plants. Their plants just thrive. They're talking to the spirit of the plant, whether they do that consciously or they're just talking to the plant. Okay, they're actually talking to the spirit of the plant. Now, my mother didn't talk to plants, but she loved plants. So a spirit of a plant would feel that love energy and it's going to thrive. So if you deprive a plant of sunshine or water, or if somebody's angry all the time and they're saying, somebody asked me to take care of this plant for them, I can't believe I'm stuck doing this. The plant's going to start going like this. So we're all connected in different ways. So when we're working on something shamanically, we're always dealing with the spirit of, whatever it is. And basically, a shaman has to be able to do everything. Okay. So if somebody says they're a healer and they're saying, well, I'm a shaman because I'm a healer. No, you're not. You don't do everything. So you're a phenomenal healer, and we need those. Okay. But you're not a shaman, you're a healer. Or somebody's a healer and they're psychic. Okay. You're great at both. It does not mean you're a shaman. Okay. Because it's not something we do overnight. And it's a lifelong thing. Okay. So as an example, a shaman actually has to be able to do everything. So think tribal times. So in tribal times, what would happen is a shaman, as an example, would be the spiritual leader of the community, right? So I'm interfaith ministry. Okay. They're on the council and they counsel individually and tribal. Okay. So I'm a counselor through the ministry. They're healers. I'm a healer. Basically, they do everything. So they help with advice. Obviously, they do readings because we need to be able to help. They do prophecy. Prophecy is different than a reading. Okay. A reading means that you're giving information to individuals and the tribe. Prophecy, when you're doing prophecy, it means it's not individual. Somebody doing prophecy is giving information psychically to a group, whether it's a community, a tribe, a city, but it's a group. It's not going to be individual. Some people do both. Okay. And then you have people that shaman are peacemakers. Okay. So we will make sure everybody's at peace. If they have a conflict, we will help them work it out. Now, what people don't realize, think tribal, we're also warriors. So you need to know weapons. People don't think of that. To this day, you still have to know everything, including weapons. So we are the weapon, by the way. So if we go on the occult side, okay, we don't even need the physical weapon, but we all know that. So I do archery, I do martial arts, I do a couple of different things, whole big list. But you need to know all of it. And the way you look at it is this: tribal. If the chief goes to war, tribal times, chief goes to war, the shaman is either on the horse next to the chief, male or female shaman. If you're a shaman, you're a shaman. So you're either protecting the chief, being next to the chief on the physical and the psychic level, and you're protecting the tribe at a distance. Or the chief will leave you with the tribe, and now you're protecting the chief at a distance, and you're protecting the tribe physically and psychically and spiritually. We do everything on the spiritual, psychic, paranormal field. We cover all the fields. And if we're not walking on that path, okay, then we're not shaman. So it's a very heavy level. Now, we do use tools a lot of times. As an example, we do vision quests, which I'm sure you've heard of. We use Vision Quest, but we also use tools besides that. So as an example, if you look at books where they have somebody standing with a power rod or a staff, as an example, so this is a European tool. So if you can see this, more or less, if you see this, okay, everything with it has a meaning. Okay. We don't explain the meaning. People see it by accident. They go, oh, it's pretty. I have one from my grandfather somewhere where everything, all the symbols are carved on a staff and everything has a meaning. And I have that on my wall, but we use everything. So as an example, we use power rods. They look like this. Now, I do teach how to make them and how to use them. But with this, we're sending energy. If you look at books, a lot of times you'll see That's a shaman as an example, okay, and they're standing on top of the mountain and their arms are like this, or one arm is up and they're holding a staff and it has a terminated crystal. And the reason for that is because we use that as transmitters. People think, oh, they look pretty, and they do, but it's actually transmitter. Because when you think of crystals, they're used in transmitters, they're used in watches, they're used in a lot of different ways, but they're actually transmitters. So we're sending energy, we're using our arms as receivers. And what happens is we communicate with different realms. And we do believe in different realms, not just on the spiritual, non-visual realm, but we do connect to UFOs and different beings and different entities on the spiritual plane, physical, non-physical. So it's a tuning device, but it's actually a transmitter. Okay. Now, sometimes we build them differently. Like this one is, about this big. I don't know if you can see that enough. However, it has an attachment. So the other part of it, if I'm outside because it's too big for inside, it actually is extremely tall because then we're connecting to different realms. And sometimes the transmitter, just like a tower, right? For, say, the radio stations. Okay. When you're thinking of towers, sometimes the tower has to be higher if you're, say, in the middle of the mountains. Okay. And if you think about it, when you see pictures of, say, a medicine man or a medicine woman or a shaman, and they're using a power rod, okay, they're usually standing on top of a mountain. You don't see them using that in the middle of, say, Manhattan. And there's a reason for all that, okay, because of the frequency level. We use crystals because it collects the negative energy so it doesn't harm us, the negative energy and frequencies, okay, and it nullifies it. So I was just saying earlier, if you look at my microwave, which I try not to use, but if you look at the microwave, underneath, I have a clear quartz crystal. Okay, because that way the microwave energy does not come to me. It does not affect me. Okay, if you're doing anything with computers, electronics, all you have to do is take a little tiny piece, put it near it. It doesn't have to be under it, on top of it. Most of what we do shamanically, by the way, is not visual. So when I have a student or clients come over, some things I have out because this is a way of life for me. Some things you wouldn't recognize as an occult situation or an occult tool. But with the crystals, it just has to be within 3 feet, actually. The crystals can be a little bit farther, but in gemstones, crystals, the vibration usually has to be within 3 feet of the object. So with the 3 feet, it's going to nullify the energy coming off, say, a microwave or the computer or anything. And I always laugh because if somebody looked at my cell phone and they took off the back, little tiny, tiny slivers of crystal around there, because I don't want that energy affecting my vibration. And shamanically, or people that are psychic or intuitive, same thing, by the way, we feel that energy differently than other people. So even if you don't feel it, it's still there. And scientifically, it's actually been proven. So it's not just us saying, well, we just made this up and we're just telling you. The other thing that we do that people can do on their own, that's why I'm trying to give some examples. I'll make sure some things you can do by yourself. If you get a wand or a rod, okay, of wood. So say you hike. Some of us hike, we do everything. So if you're hiking and you get one that's 25 inches high, okay, but it has to be exact. If you're off a tiny bit, it will not work. Okay, there's a reason for the 25 inches, and there's some other sizes, but we're going to do this one. So 25 inches, and you get a staff that's 25 inches. First of all, it aligns with your spine. Okay, the other part of that, which usually we don't explain, the other part of that is if you're hiking and you're using that staff, what's going to happen is you can hike longer, you will have more energy. You literally don't get as tired quickly. You can hike for miles more than you normally do. If you're hiking a long distance, that will keep you moving, and it actually makes a difference. If any of you hike, Try it out. You will actually see the difference because your energy will be higher. It'll be stronger. Okay. And you will hike differently. And it helps you physically in a lot of other ways because it aligns with your spine, but it has to be exactly 25 inches. If you were taking something, say, like a wire, a piece of metal, and it could be thread, metal, anything, that's exactly 3 inches. And it's an occult way to deal, but it's exactly 3 inches. Can't be off. Okay. And it could be, like I said, I'd say more like, I don't want to say thread, it can be thread, um, but more like, say, like a piece of wool, something a little stronger, just to make it easier, or a little thin piece of wire. If it's exactly 3 inches, and by the way, it doesn't have to be straight. So with thread, as long as it's exactly 3 inches, you can roll it up into a little ball, stick it in your pocket, doesn't matter. But if you're speaking publicly, okay, it makes you a better speaker. Okay, or if you're trying to not have an argument, trying to have a discussion with somebody that you already know does not agree with you. You want them to listen to you. You want to be a little bit more articulate. Okay, if you have that with you, and you can always put it in your pocket, if you even touch your hand against your pocket, just sometimes for reinforcement emotionally, because the vibration will work, it makes you a better speaker.
What is it about that, the wool or the thread, that helps you to be a better speaker?
The 3 inches. It's the vibration of the number three. Okay. And you'll notice a lot of times when you see people working occult, a lot of times it's in threes, 3, 6, 9. Okay. If you think of Nikolai Tesla, he did everything 3, 6, and 9 as much as he could. So the vibrational energy on the occult side has so much more to it than I can actually explain at this point. There's too much, but there's so much to it. So if you have something that's exactly 3 inches, okay, it's actually going to help you on that level if you're doing public speaking, or if you're trying to talk to somebody. By the way, it does not make it so that you convince people of your point of view. Okay, we're not trying to control anybody that's negative. What it does is it makes sure that you can speak eloquently enough for them to listen to you, and then they can decide if they're going to agree with you or not. We're not controlling other people. That's negative. A little frustrating. It would be nice if they agreed with us all the time. But those are tools that you can actually use yourself. Because basically what we do is, as shaman, we direct, how can I put this? We direct and ride the energy streams, especially if we're out of body. And when you're a shaman, you have balance between earth and between the different realms, and you're the center. So you really are the center goal. Think of it as a line, right? So if you're thinking of it as a line, shaman, we're the line, we're the center. We control both realms, the physical and the different realms energetically. And it's a really, sometimes you have to feel it to be able to explain it a little bit more, but that's the best way I can explain it. So what happens is we function from a different way. So as an example, if something went wrong in my life, cancel. If something went wrong in my life, I'm going to look at it realistically because it's a real situation. And then immediately I will step back and I'll say, okay, how can I fix this? How can I make it better? What can I do to control the energies so the energies will flow differently to change the situation? I've been doing this full time since I'm 16, spiritual, psychic, paranormal. This is all I've done, and everything connected to it, books, videos, ebooks, audiobooks, everything. And I teach, but basically everything I do is connected to spiritual, psychic, and paranormal. Okay. So there's nothing 9 to 5. And I have friends that don't understand how I can pay all my bills, how I can survive, how I'm doing great when I don't have a 9 to 5 to depend on. Okay, but we maneuver energy. So if something isn't working, because everything goes up and down. That's nature. Everything flows up and down. When it's down, we just work it and it comes right back up. And we don't worry. We look at a situation, we're not happy with this one. How can we avoid, fix, improve? Okay, so we immediately work it. I was in different situations where sometimes it's not that positive. So sometimes you have to step back and say, okay, what happened that this situation came up in my life. It could be that it was a learning situation where I need to learn from it and go, okay, now I understand it, and then move on. And people always assume if you're a shaman, that means everything's always perfect in your life. Okay. Then you can't help other people. We have situations that we need to learn from, because how can you have empathy for somebody going through a situation if you've never been through any situation? Okay. You can't help somebody if you don't understand. Well, we're back to counseling and spiritual leaders. Okay. Same thing with medicine, with shamanic medicine, not the medical field. Okay. So what happens is, think tribal again. If somebody has an issue, we're going to look at how can we send them healing. It can be through herbs. It could be something that's liquid. It could be just sending direct energy. Okay. Is there something that they can do on their end besides what we're doing? So it's a little bit more intricate. So if you think of like a little center globe, right? Think of a little center globe that's all white light. That's us. Right? And then you have all these strands of energy just shooting out from it everywhere. Okay, we're going to have to say, okay, this person has this problem. We're trying to build their business, because I deal with corporate people to build their business, right? I have to understand it. So now there's this strand, and I'm going to say, okay, so let me find which strand is going to help that person energetically, white light, and it's like a laser beam, right? And then I'm going to find that, and that's directed with that person, how it's connected to them. And then we kind of ride different energy streams and fix it. That's pretty much the best way I can explain it. So we are the energy.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because, it's a really great visual to think of that helps a person to try to like figure out, okay, where is it connected to? Because not everything, the physical is merely just a manifestation, everything that comes from a spiritual level. So if you understand where it came from, then you can, nip it in the butt, so to speak, when it comes into the physical.
When I'm dealing with a client, I have to really look at, okay, what caused the problem in the first place? Okay, so you have to look at the cause to be able to fix it, to work with it. So as an example, if somebody says to me that they have lower back pain for years and years and years, not at the moment, we all have different things going on, but I'm saying long term, okay, my first awareness is, okay, what that means is if they have lower back pain, it means they're worried about money. Okay, so we have to fix the outlook to have a long-term effect with that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a real situation if somebody else was looking at their problem. Because say somebody came through during the Depression, they can have $20 million and they're going to be worried about losing it. They're not making 30. It's a real issue for them. So somebody from the outside is going to look in, they're going to go, I don't know what they're talking about, because after all, they're making a lot of money. They're fine. Okay. But their mental outlook is, I've gone through so much and I've lost so much, and then I gained and then I lost, So with the up and down in the back of their mind, they're always going, well, what if it goes wrong? And eventually they're going to create it, because whatever you focus on eventually will happen. If you have a quick thought, that doesn't mean it automatically happens. But when you're really, really focused on something, that's what I'm always saying, intent is very important. So there's so many intricate little details that people don't realize we're doing as shaman to help.
Any additional thing that you want to say before we wrap up?
See, what I wanted to say were two things. One is, I really feel people should be aware is that life is unlimited. And I think you should pick your direction and have fun. Okay. Also, thank you for joining us today, and may God bless you abundantly.
Don't forget to join us for more fascinating shows with the Budapest Psychic as we bring more stimulating content. Don't forget to stop by for our next show on Travel the Waves of Time. Please like, share, and subscribe to get these shows to other like-minded seekers. For anyone looking for further information on Maria's services, including her classes, contact her using any of these methods. We'll see you next time on the Budapest Psychic.